Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Eduarda Castel-Branco for our next session on a demo of international interoperable systems. She will introduce her panel after I hand over to Eduarda. Let me tell you a little bit more about Eduarda. She has extensive experience in international cooperation, 18 years in the European Training Foundation, working in the domains of skills, anticipation and matching, qualification systems and frameworks. She's also coordinated and supported the development of 2 handbooks of the Compendium on Labor Market Information, and she currently leads the ETF activities in the domain of big data for labor market information. She's a member of the EQF advisory group from 2013 to 2017 and supported EQF referencing process of several ETF partner countries, such as North Macedonia, Serbia, Albania. Currently, Eduarda also has contributes to ESCO platform, to the EQF project linking qualifications with ESCO. She's also contributed to joint research projects with CEDEFOP and UNESCO on comparison of qualifications. She's a co-author of most recent ETF research paper on regional qualifications frameworks globally since 2021 and contributes to ILO training course in Latin America. She's currently the thematic advisor to the European African Union Commission, ESTI, in the context of AU-EU project developing the African Continental Qualifications Framework. And she's obviously author of reports of the ACQF mapping study. So she has vast and extensive experience, and she's going to share that with us this morning. I'm going to hand over to you, Eduarda. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for this invitation. Thank you, Roxana, for the introduction. This session discusses applications of big data and data science in the context of labor market and skills intelligence. We are in a datified society. New data sources can be explored to supplement conventional statistical data and renew them towards smarter systems of labor market and skills intelligence. Big data is a gold mine. From the one hand, analysis of big data enables real-time, granular analysis of occupational and skills dynamics. And most importantly, because of the links that can be done with other data sources. The 2 presentations today in this session highlight the conceptual and methodological foundations of big data applications and their contribution to improve the governance and interoperability of data analysis and data delivery. Let me then introduce our speakers. So our first speaker is Mauro Pellucchi. He is head of global data science at MC Burning Glass. Mauro is a senior data scientist, although he's very young, and a big data engineer responsible for the design of the real-time labor market information system on skills requirements for the EU, European Union 27, led by CEDEFOP. Mauro is also the lead data scientist and engineer in a similar project led by the European Training Foundation in countries of Eastern Europe and Northern Africa. And these countries are currently Ukraine, Georgia, Tunisia, and more are joining in 2022. Besides research, Mauro works with the University of Milano Bicocca as a lecturer at the Master Business Intelligence and Big Data Analytics, and with the University of Bergamo as a lecturer in computer engineering. Thank you, Mauro, for being here with us again. Our second speaker is our very dear Professor Monji Boursala. He is a Tunisian academic and researcher specialized in the domain of labor markets, employment, skills dynamics, author of a range of international publications and a contributor to the ETF project, Big Data for Labor Market Intelligence, the Case of Tunisia. Thank you, Professor Bourgsalah, for being again with us and for sharing your views. To illustrate the potentialities of the system of online job vacancy analysis Tunisia, which is going to be presented first by Professor Bourgsalah, we will have a video at the end of this session. And then to conclude, as always, we will have an interaction, a question of questions and answers. I'd like immediately then to pass the floor to Mauro. He will share his presentation. Mauro, your presentation is about unlocking the power of big data to inform labor market and education policy. Mauro, you have a lot to say, but you have only 15 minutes. Thank you very much, Mauro.
Thank you. Thank you, Eduarda. Can you hear me right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
thank you, Eduardo, for your beautiful introduction, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for your invitation. So, my presentation today will focus on what is a labor market intelligence system and how to create a labor market intelligence system, and particularly we will see how the artificial intelligence, machine learning techniques, and so on help us to extract insight, new dimension, new flights from labor market data, and in particularly from a web job vacancy. Let me to start from the context, because when we have to build a project from big data to extract the value about the labor market, of course we have to keep in mind what is the context. Of course, we have developed this system for the European Union and also for, in particular, for ETF, because there are a lot of challenges in labor market that started in the last years. So I'm speaking about the digitalization of profession, about the evolution of the skill, about the internalization of the labor market, and of course, last but not least, for example, the COVID pandemic and the green transition. Of course, if we want to observe the evolution of this phenomenon, it's quite poor to use only the traditional data that we have from the National Statistical Office, because we need to use more faster data and more powerful data. And this is the context where we work usually. Of course, the official statistics are good because they have a lot of representative, and they are very strong about the terms of value that they have. Of course, we need to increase this data by using web data. Our idea is to use more fast data and more granular data by collecting the web job vacancy, because in the web job vacancy we have a lot of information directly from the employers about the role, the occupation, and the skill of what they need. So our work is to try to use this real-time big data to transform the online job advertisements in insight and analytics. It's not magic, of course, because we work every day to this work. We have a strong methodology to do this. Of course, we want to apply academic research and new study to run this type of work. What we do every day is start to collect data real time from the job boards, employment agency, from the career service of the university, for example, and also directly from the employer, because what they want is to collect a lot of job posting. Then we apply a strong methodology to transform this job posting in insight. What we do is very simple from a statistical point of view. We apply some framework to clean the noise from this data, to remove the duplicated job posting, and we apply machine learning and artificial intelligence to try to predict and try to classify each job posting in the dimension of the labor market. When I speak about the dimension of the labor market, I am speaking of the classical dimension that we have in the traditional data, because we need to compare the data from the web with the traditional data. And usually the link point is the occupation and the industry, for example, so the sector of the job posting. So we apply artificial intelligence to collect, to predict and to classify job posting with the right occupation, for example. So what we do is to predict the occupation, for example, but we don't use only private framework to do this, but also standard framework. For example, for the occupation title, we use an European standard that is called ESCO and an international standard that is ISCO, because in this case we can compare and we can link the data that we collect with the traditional data. Let me to give you an example, a very fast example. I am connecting to our system. So we have a global platform and also an analytics platform for only some country. I can connect, for example, to the job posting competition. I can select a region around the world. I'm using Milan, sorry, because I am coming from Italy. So for me, it's more easy to show my situation. I am looking for an occupation. In this case, I will not use an international standard, because usually the international standards are good to create this interoperability about data, but they are too slow about the new occupation. So I'm using a private standard. So I wanted to show you what is the situation of data scientists and analytics profession in my region. And I can observe the situation in real time. So I can observe, for example, the unique job posting that we have in Milan, so about 5,000 job posting about profession related to data scientists and analytics platform. I can see the trend. But I can also compare the data between different markets. For example, I have this situation in Milan, so I have a change percentage of 4%. I can observe what are the main companies that are looking for data scientists in Milan. I can go also to the skill, because the real value of the labor market data from the web job vacancy is the skill prediction. In this case, I can understood what are the most frequent skill in job posting, but also in the social profile, because we don't only collect data about the job posting, but we want also to compare the data from the demand with the supply. So data from the job posting with the data from social profile. When I'm speaking about social profile, I'm speaking the big platform about the social profile that we have in internet, you know. And we can go in deeper in this case. Of course, we have a lot of challenges, because when we work in a multi-language environment, we have to develop a pipeline and text processing techniques that have to work not only with the English language, but also with the other languages from English, German, Italian, but also with Georgian, Spanish, Portugal, and the other languages. So it's very complex. Also because when we collect data from the web, we have a lot of noise. So we need to apply some techniques to reduce the noise. Mainly, the big issue is about the duplication, because you know, a job posting, you can find the same job posting on different platforms on the web. So we apply a strong methodology to reduce this noise and to remove the duplication issue, because we want to compare this data with the traditional data. Of course, we have three main components in the system. The data ingestion, that when I'm speaking about data ingestion, is the component that enables us to collect data from these big social network, big job boards, big employment agency. We have a component that we call data processing, where we reduce the noise and where we apply machine learning to predict the occupation and the skill. And of course, the last component is the data analysis, because one of the value of the system is the ability to visualize the data and to give insight to the decision maker. Of course, we apply AI because it's impossible to classify each job posting manually. We have 3 billion of job posting at least in our system, so we cannot do this manually. We apply machine learning. When I'm speaking about machine learning, I'm speaking about a system that is able to learn about our insight. So we apply these techniques to predict the occupation and to classify the occupation, but not only to classify, also to predict what will happen in the next 2 years. Of course, is a multidisciplinary environment, because we don't need only statistical method or tools, but we need a lot of knowledge that are coming from computer science, that are coming from classical statistics, but also from some data visualization knowledge and so on, because the real value of this system, of the labor market, of big data in labor market, is not only the ability to collect data and classify, but the real challenge is to move the insight near the decision maker. It is the real challenge, because we need to increase the interoperability about job vacancy, social profiles, and traditional data, because one policymaker wants not only to see this pillar split, but we need to move each dimension in the same place. Let me to give you an example very fast. I am collecting to another platform that we have. Unfortunately, currently is only on some countries, so is not around the globe. But I can show you some insight, for example, for the UK region. So I can analyze, for example, the industry. I can collect to the industry situation, for example, that we have in UK. Let me to change the market from US to UK. What I wanted to watch to explore with you is the real interoperability about job posting, social profile, and traditional data. I can go to the industry. I can select one location, for example, in the UK. So, okay, let me to select Edinburgh. What I want to show you is the job grew, and also the location quotient. What are these data? What I'm showing to you is the increase of the jobs that we have in the Edinburgh city from 2018 to 2021. Of course, we can compare the data from a statistical point of view, from a number point of view, but we can also observe the visual location quotient. What is a visual location quotient? It's a number that helps us to compare the city of Edinburgh to the entire UK. So to compute this type of quotient, we apply not only job posting data, but also traditional data, because we want to compare the industry situation that we observe from the job posting with the industry situation that is arriving from the traditional data that usually the National Statistical Institute collect from labor force survey or other type of surveys. Of course, I can go deeper. For example, I can, of course, select the major sector that we have in Edinburgh, and I can go deeper with an industry overview. When I go too deeper in the analysis of the industry in Edinburgh, I can compare the situation with the industry, with the busy industry, so about the health profession that we have in Edinburgh, with the rest of the United Kingdom. I can go in deeper with the most occupation but the employers are looking about the health profession, and I also observe the different about the gender that we have in this profession. All of these data are an example of the interoperability of web data, social profiles, and traditional data. Of course, to do this, we need a way to link this data. Usually, this type of bridge is coming from the occupation and the industry. Of course, in our system, we don't use only job posting analytics, but also the profile analytics, the structured labor market intelligence, and also library and taxonomy, because we want to compare this data with traditional data. In this example, you can see a publication about the comparison about the labor force survey from Italy with the job posting from Italy from the 2011 to the 2018. As you can observe by this chart, there is a strong relation between labor force survey and the job vacancy count. But we can also go deeper because we can observe the situation not only in Italy. We collect data around the world. In this chart, you can see an example of the interoperability about the job posting versus the employment distribution from Eurostat in the different occupation category, from a manager to the elementary occupation. Another example, of course, is the application of this data to active policy or passive policy. For example, one of the usual use case of our system is the upskilling and the reskilling of people. So we can calculate the bridge between different role and different occupation. Of course, when I'm speaking about the bridge, it's not only a number between, so an edge or number between two different occupations. It is also the ability of this data to try to create the link and to insert, to add to this link the skill needed to move from occupation to another occupation. Of course, one of the classic application is the education. For example, to help the education provider to improve the to improve the education program, and also the skill intelligence. The skill intelligence is one of the big challenges that we have now in Europe, specifically in Europe, but also around the world. And we release platform to predict the skill need from the next 2 years in different contexts, in different industries, in different regions. Of course, one of the big challenge is how to use this data. Let me to give one last example of our data in action. Of course, it's about the demand and supply analysis. When I'm speaking about the demand and supply analysis, is about the use of job posting data and also social profile data together to release insight to a policymaker. Let me to give you one fast example. Applied from the Spain use case. So in this chart, let me to refresh the screen and to apply a little zoom. Okay, as you can see in this chart, we can observe the career of the people in Spain. Of course, we are using social profile, so we have some bias about occupation and employers that we can find on the web. We need to know this type of situation because we need to inform our stakeholder about the data. Of course, I can go to the entire career of people about the previous occupation, the current occupation, and the next occupation. For example, one of the main theme I think we have today is about the cybersecurity. So I can try to understand what is the best addition about the people from a classic occupation to the cyber and information engineer, or to become a cyber and information security analyst. As you can see, so I'm watching to the space situation. I can try to understand where is located this talent. So I can see the Barcelona region, the Madrid region, and so on. I can observe also the transition. So the people that are in the next occupation as a cyber engineer or cyber analyst currently are coming from the network engineer, so classic network engineer, from computer support specialist, from auditor, from business management. I can understand also what is the best transition, for example, from software developer to cybersecurity. And I can also observe what is the time about the reoccupation. So how many days we have between the current situation to the next situation. As you can see, from the software developer engineer to the cyber security, usually one person pass about 30 days. Thank you. So I stop my presentation. I think I leave the stage, I return the stage to Eduarda, and thank you for your notes and your question. Eduarda, you are mute.
Yes, thank you very much for this comprehensive presentation and for unveiling so many, let's say, interesting elements of the methodological, conceptual, and technological underpinnings of this data system, and for showing the various types of interoperability that are possible very concretely. Let us then pass the floor to Professor Mongi. Mongi is going to, he has a very short presentation in which he's going to give a perspective not at all of a data scientist, but of research in the policy domain. I think Mauro said earlier that these projects have to be multidisciplinary, and that's now one of the examples. So Mongi will briefly present the key features of labor market intelligence in Tunisia and explain why big data analytics can contribute to change and improvement. Mongi, the floor is yours whenever you want. You have 5-6 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well, but we don't see yet the presentation.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm really delighted, and it's a pleasure for me to speak today very briefly about the Tunisian labor market challenges and labor market intelligence. For Tunisia, this is a very key topic because Tunisia is facing key challenges in terms of unemployment and skill matching. Tunisia is a small country in North Africa that you all know about, but the issue we're talking about is that Tunisia is going through a strong supply pressure in its labor market. Even though Tunisia has been in very rather better situation in demographic terms, because the population growth has gone down for very much. We're very much in advance in terms of demographic transition. Population growth has been going down from about 2% to 1% in around 2000, and even though that happened, the supply pressure is ongoing. It continues, mainly because of the structure of the labor market. What happened, and that education attainment has increased very much, and we have a dramatic increase in the number of higher education graduates, which has tripled in about 15 years. So what we have as a result, a large supply of educated and skilled people, skilled young people, both men and women, and actually more women than men. And at the same time, the demand for skills remained low. And therefore, we have a lot of high-skilled youth unemployment. Not only that, we have more supply than demand for skills, and we have skill mismatch. And this is partly due to the limited labor market analytical capacity. Please, next one. So there is a lack of data and analytical capacity. Data on vacancies and skills are very scarce. Not enough is known about employers' current and future needs for skills. So how can the education system produce the right skills if not enough is known about what employment and employers' needs? So this is really the big issue. The only major source of information is the manpower surveys, the quarterly manpower surveys that are run on a regular basis, but that's not enough. We need a lot more. Please, next one. So what Tunisia is facing is low demand for labor, and especially low demand for skills and skill mismatch. As a result, a lot of young people who are educated, more or less educated, including the more educated, have to choose between unemployment and low quality jobs in the informal sector. And these jobs are available in a larger number, and they are easier to find. But of course, they are not good enough, and they're rejected, and they are not satisfactory for youth, especially for women and for the educated. So a lot of young people who went to universities or graduated, and especially women, would rather stay unemployed than take a low quality job in the informal sector. We know that skill mismatch is a real issue because a lot of employers are complaining about the scarcity of the right type of skills. And within this framework, the labor laws and the labor legal framework is a challenge. What we have is that, in simple terms, we have the National Employment Agency, which by law has to be informed about any new recruitment. Employers have to provide information about any people they recruit. While in practice, this agency does not have the means and the capacity to really monitor the labor market. Even though private employment agencies are not allowed by law, they are in practice flourishing, and many of them are operating openly, and they're quite tolerated in practice. So there is a debate about changing the law, but it's still there, and that's the problem. It's been a hindrance because if private agencies are not legally allowed, then you cannot just it's not proper. You cannot properly do statistics about what they produce and what they do. Legal, please, next one. So the big data project undertaken in the framework of ITIA proves that in spite of this poor situation in Tunisia, a lot of progress can be made, and rapidly, if we use the new technology and use big data and all of these techniques that allow to capture the data and use it and produce in real time what information about the labor market needs. What has been done is a proof that it can be achieved. Already we have the ability to capture the data and use it and obtain results. So what is left to be done is that in Tunisia, first of all, the policymakers and all the partners agree on a new legal setup and start using and investing and accepting the benefits of technical progress. And luckily in Tunisia, there are a lot of smart people who can do it. I mean, we have many schools of information and new technology, etc. We have good engineers, and we can cooperate with our partners to make this come true. So I think Tunisia is going through facing a big challenge, but the solution luckily exists. So I hope this is great presentation helps to put things in the right context. And thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Monji, for the presentation. Now, we should, in principle, have a video. But time is really very short because we need to finish in 13 minutes. Therefore, and we have already many questions. What I suggest is that we go directly to the questions, and I think the colleagues, the organizers of the conference can share the video, the demonstration with you. I think we always have to take decisions, and I think there is no other way to go because there is simply no time. Let me then start with the questions. So I received here already 9 questions. Let us try to select also. We can also not reply to all of them. So let me reply immediately to one of the questions myself. It concerns more or less my part of the work. So this question coming from Dr. Banganin Galeza. Can you say something about the governance structure for CEDEFOP and how it's funded? So CEDEFOP is the EU agency, brother or sister to European Training Foundation. We practically have the same scope of work. Only CEDEFOP works on vocational education and training policies, labor market analysis, research with the EU member states, European Union member states. ETF works on the same areas, but with neighboring countries, Eastern Europe, Northern Africa, and also Central Europe. So the structure, so CEDEFOP has, of course, a director, and it is governed by a governing board composed of representatives of the 27 EU member states, plus some additional institutions. And it is funded by the EU budget. So it's exactly the same situation as the European Training Foundation. Now let me start passing some questions to Mauro. Mauro, you have here really a very big amount of questions. I'm trying to more or less structure them. Okay, one of the questions is about the permissions to scrap data. So is it necessary? What kind of permissions do we use? What is the general approach? So the polite approach, or if needed, also some kind of agreements with the job boards. And I'm going to give you immediately another question from another participant about the machine learning as it is used in the processing and pre-processing phase, for example, to remove noise. Maybe if you don't mind, Mauro, a third question related with this one. And so these 2 questions, the one on machine learning to remove noise and the next one come from Mustaq Ali. And it is the following. Have you tested the data integrity after the noise reduction? So you have 3 questions to start. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eduarda. And okay, let me to start from the beginning. So from the data ingestion. Of course, to scrape data from the web, it's not easy because there are a lot of technical issues and also about some organization issue. About the technical issue, it's easy to address because we have a strong framework to scrape data. Of course, we want to be polite with the platform where we scrape data, because we don't to run some cyber attack to this platform, of course. So usually we try to inform each single platform, and usually we try to establish an agreement with this platform. So we have an agreement with the big platform where we take the data. In a lot of time during the years, we don't really scrape data, but we receive data directly from the employment agency system. So we are using technically API to directly access to this system. Of course, one of the big challenges is about the social profiles. In this case, our sources are the user sources from the web. I'm speaking about LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Sing. So in this case, we want to be polite. So we ask to the platform if we can scrape the data. Technically, each platform in each website as a file where they show us if what we can take and what we cannot take. So our technician uses some profiling tools to understand if the stakeholder allow us to scrape the data. Of course, if we are able to have an agreement, is the best situation for everyone. About the machine learning and the noise reduction, I'm using the two questions together. Of course, it is a long process and it's a never-end process. So to develop the system for about 30 languages, different languages, is not simple. So of course, we use a methodology because we want to, usually our methodology is very fast, but of course is not perfect. So what we do is try to increase the precision of the algorithm in the more fast way, and then every month we apply improvements. Of course, we engage experts. Usually we engage local experts because we don't know the labor market for each single country or each single region. So it's not only work about data scientists or computer science, but the role of an external expert to understand if our machine learning model working well or not working well is very important. And usually we make improvement every month because the web data are not static, but they continue to change every month, every 2 months. So we have a strong quality layer where we capture the data and we store the data that we receive from our sources and our machine learning model. In case of issue, it's possible, we improve the system, and it's a long story. So about, for example, to give you a number, about a set of project, it was free. It was a project of 3 years to develop the system for all the countries in Europe. And also about the noise reduction, of course, we apply a big data methodology. So we store everything in a data lake where we have the good data and also the bad data, because we want to observe the data before each single gateway of our text processing techniques. So we observe the data before, during the text processing, and after, and we compare this data with the traditional data because it is our true source.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me then go to the next question, and it's an interesting question from Charlene Deacon. Can this data be used to identify the genesis, the emergence of possible new job roles, so related then with new skills, new tasks? And this is an excellent question because, in fact, this is one of the important things that can be done with this data. Thank you. Just very quick response. To you, Mauro. Did you?
Sorry, Eduarda, I lost 1 second the connection. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yes, yes. So we have a very interesting question about one of the very important things that this data, the big data for labor market intelligence, can do. The question comes from Charlene Deacon. She asks, how can this data be used to identify the genesis of possible new job roles arising? So emerging tasks, emerging skills. It is very well done through this data system. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Eduardo, and sorry for my connection. Yes, of course, the methodology that we apply enable us to extract from the data that we have. Also, usually we call them the new job roles and the new emerging trends, because, like I mentioned before, we apply, of course, traditional and standard taxonomy to classify the occupation and the skill, because we want to compare our data with the traditional data. Of course, we store everything in our data lake. So, of course, it is not a work that we do every month, but every quarter we apply some text mining techniques to try to understand if in the data we found new roles, new occupation, or usually the real question is the set of skills, because when we identified the data scientist role, I think 10 years ago, so in the job posting in Italy, we didn't find a lot of data scientists. But what we observed is the request from the employers of different skill, of a new skill for traditional role. In instance, we observed that a lot of classical statistics or software developer are requested with knowledge from statistician, Python, machine learning model, and these type of observation were in manufacturing or traditional sector, where these skills are not required before. So usually we use our data lake where we have all the data. So when I'm speaking all the data, where we have the job description, the raw job title, the URL, all of the information that we collect to extract this new insight.
Okay, thank you very much. We have just 2 minutes, and there is a question I'd like then to still ask to Mauro, and you have just 30 minutes and seconds to respond. So please say more about how you source supply side data and what challenges do you face in accessing this information, supply side. There are many challenges, very brief, and of course you can refer also to the presentation participants.
Yes, thank you, Eduardo. So yes, the supply side is the more difficult because we have a lot of constraint about the social network, you know, and about the big stakeholder in this case. In this case, we needed to be polite and we ask information to the source. In instance, we have a lot of agreement about the use of the data that we collect from social profiles, and also about what we have to do. You know, there are different regularization in the different countries, so we needed to be keep in mind that in Europe we have GDPR, in US we have our regularization, and so on. About the source that we have, of course, we have the big players in this context, from LinkedIn to Xing, but also our players, because we have software and we have system that we are using to process, for example, resume. In this case, one of the big challenges is about the anonymization of the data, because we don't never share the information about directed people or person, because what we have to do is to create a labor market intelligent platform. We don't want to be an employment agency, of course. So one of the big challenges is the anonymization of this data, because the data that we provide to our stakeholders is not about the person, but it's about role, skills, industry, and the prediction of the needs in this context.
Thank you so much, Mauro. I just received here an information that we still have 10 minutes, which was not said in the beginning. It was we had received concrete instructions to finish at 10:20 South African time. So let me then pass 1 or 2 questions to Professor Mongi And please, Professor, be very straightforward in your responses. So one is, for example, Professor, we can relate to the situation in Tunisia. Given that all companies are required to report opportunities centrally, which I think might be an opportunity, do you have a sense of the quality of reporting? Specifically, is there adequate incentive to report amongst employers? I believe that this is report job vacancies centrally. Would you like to say something about this, Professor, about the quality, maybe the timeliness of the job vacancies provided centrally by employers? Thank you.
No, the issue is that employers most of the time don't do it. They do it, even if they did, they only do what is legally required. So not enough information is conveyed by the employers to the central agency. They would rather deal with the private ones because they allow more time and more better services. And so this is one of the issues, is that we don't have centralized information about the needed skills.
Thank you so much. Now, let me then still ask you a question, Professor Mongi. Similar challenges also felt that compared to the ones from Tunisia that you reported. So can you say something about how practically are you going about advocating for change amongst policy makers, but related to labor market intelligence or employment related issues, if you want to say something? So what is being done, for example, by the academia, by research, in terms of supporting change?
Well, I cannot speak on behalf of all of academia, but I think what may be suggested, what policymakers need to do is, first of all, get together and realize that it's crucial for the country to build, to improve the information system, and to start with, to be able to centralize the information about the needs of the economy. And that does not mean monopolize. It's just a matter of distributing roles and connecting each other, making sure that private and public agencies work together and use a platform which may be controlled by the central agency. What a central agency needs to do is to control a platform into which everybody can have access. And that's feasible. But this needs agreement among and there is suspicion which has to be dealt with. A lot of the labor unions are afraid that this may be done against the interest of the workers, and so on. So communication between partners is very crucial.
Thank you very much. We have then 6 minutes left. Unfortunately, because of the bit contradictory instructions we received, we were not able to show our video, which gives a very good, short, clear demonstration of the data system, Tunisia, how it works, what it provides, the kind of interoperability and interactive visualization and search of information that it allows. This system is going to be improved. I mentioned earlier in the very brief introductory remarks that ETF continues to work with Ukraine, Tunisia, Georgia, and new countries from Northern Africa are going to join this data system. So, this next phase from 2022 will then involve more work to improve the data visualization platform, notably, and more. Maybe what can also be said is that, and I think this is also transpires from the questions asked by participants. It is not only about data, it's not only about technology, it's not only about machine learning, it's not only about innovating the data potentialities, the data technologies, related technologies. It's about governance. And this is what Professor Mongi is just saying. It's about working together. It's about sharing data. It's about trusting data and be ready also to innovate and to accept and support innovation. It's about different sides of the society working together. And this is often a very difficult side of the story. So when the data scientists and the researchers are together to create new ways of dealing with data, of using new data, of bringing new ways of analyzing, putting them together, often we see that stakeholders or public institutions still maintain a degree of skepticism. I would like just to say that, and I'll be very short, in the context of the European Union, Eurostat, which is, as you know, the European Union statistical network, is developing and is now concretely already implementing a new, very important project, which is the Smart Trusted Statistics. And it includes exactly this big data from online job vacancies. And the idea is to have the internet data, such as online job vacancies, using the same approaches based on machine learning that were described here today, use them as part of official statistics. So that official statistics is composed of conventional statistics and smart big data-based statistics. And this is a very maybe important breakthrough, because this is the official network, statistical network of the European Union. In terms of Tunisia, well, you have the possibility to watch the video, and you of course have the possibility to simply go to the dashboard. It's available online, free. Bear in mind that it is, of course, being improved. Finally, I'd like just to say, before passing back the floor to Roxana, that maybe something that we didn't really say very concretely is that big data, such as online job vacancies, vast, fast, granular, allowing granular analysis, can be used from a perspective of bottom-up and inductive approach. So it is the paradigm, let the data speak. So you have these enormous, vast data sets, databases, and new policy questions that might be important, emerging, can be queried, can be asked. And this is what we are doing currently with the new green dashboard. So green skills are fundamental, and we are using the tools based on machine learning, the data sets that we already have with many thousands, hundreds of thousands of online job vacancies, to come up to new ways, to new responses about new questions, such as green skills. Thank you very much. I pass the floor then to Roxana. Many thanks. Thank you very much, Mauro and Mongi, and of course to all participants for all these very important questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't hear you, Roxana.
Thank you, Eduarda. That was really brilliant. Thank you so much for your presentation, and to Mauro and Mongi. It is such a privilege to view your platform and for sharing how opportunities can be taken up. You have done substantial work with the lists of occupations and with more recent technology-related occupations. So thank you also for leading the way in this regard. And there is, of course, constant updating processes, both with data and technology, as Mauro said. So we will bear that in mind. It was also excellent for us to, for you to have brought to us an African example, such as Tunisia. Very interesting indeed to note the similarities with skills mismatch both in our country and in the northern parts of Africa. And we too are faced, you know, Dr. Manji, Professor Manji, with the lack of data of employer needs. So while we do have sector skills plans for each economic sector, this is not really in real time. So we grapple with that as well. So we really like the notion of the central agency that you mentioned and keeping open and good communication. We also trying our best to do that. And we know that you have a lot more, Eduardo, to share with us beyond this panel discussion. We will post the slide presentations on the platform, the conference platform, and you also mentioned that you have several other publications that you will want to share with us. We'll post that on the PSET Cloud website, and we will also put on the video that we didn't see now. I'm sure that will be very interesting. So thank you so much for your inputs, for the lovely discussions, for managing all the questions on time. We wish we had more time, but I think we've done well with your presentation and the time allocation. You would like to go, yeah, you on mute, Eduardo? Eduardo, you on mute?
Please, may I kindly ask all of you as citizens to join your best thoughts and prayers for the people of Ukraine fighting now for freedom against a brutal invasion. Thank you.
Our thoughts and prayers are with you at this time, Eduardo, and all the people of Ukraine and Europe. A war such as this looming on our doorsteps is really not easy to handle and manage. So thank you so much, despite your difficulties, for you to be with us today. Thank you, and God bless all of you. Thanks.